before we get into deeper questions, first question is, how do you select your projects to make your films?
Well, for a while I made, I found John Raymond through reading his novel, The Half-Life, and then wrote him and asked him if he had a short story. And then that led to this long relationship of making 4 films together. And he would sort of say, here's what we should do next. And okay, like he sort of came up with a lot of the ideas of when I would be editing one project, he would be sort of throwing ideas out about what might come next. And so that was quite easy and convenient. And then more recently he was busy working on a novel and has had 2 kids in the time we've been working together. So I was left out to go out into the world and find my own. And I don't know, I was just reading a lot and reading a lot of short stories. And I can't even remember where I first saw Miley's first story, but I feel like I read it online somewhere while I was traveling, but or maybe, I don't know, Powell's bookstore or something, but I can't really remember. I have such a bad memory. But I, at a point, got in touch with her, and I read more of her shorts, and she has 2 collections of shorts, and I eventually wrote her and asked her if she would consider letting me use some of the stories. So
in this particular stories, I heard one of the Kristen Stewart short story that Lily Gladstone, the original in the short story was Mann, right?
The rancher is a man. And
right.
Yeah.
And then I was wondering, at what point did you decide to make them female?
The writing of the script was a really long process and trying different stories to see how they would work together. And at some point, I remember, I think I was having dinner with Todd Haynes, and I was talking about that story and how it's not tying in. And we were talking about what if she was a woman, and I was listing all the reasons I thought it couldn't work. And then at some point, we were just realized, like, well, I should just try it. Let me just try it, and then I'll at least get over the idea of it. And so I started working through the sort of stumbling blocks that were in the way of that happening, and then it just sort of took on its own. Yeah, it was more working than not working, and was helping the overall film, so, overall script. So, I just sort of stuck with it, yeah.
It just makes sense having the title now.
Yeah.
And you're one of the rare combination where you wrote, directed, and edited the film. How is it easy and how is it difficult? Because they say in cinema the editing is another writing process of the film.
It sort of is, yeah.
So how does it change? Has it changed a lot from your writing script to the editing process when you do your films, editing as well?
Yeah, it is sort of similar. It is, except for when you're writing, everything's still possible, and when you're editing, you're locked into. It's no longer the world of possibilities. You have to, you dive into the film you're making, But, the advantages, they're both advantage and disadvantage. I think the advantage of working with a editor would be that you had someone outside the production experience that would bring a fresh view to it. And it seems like to be in a conversation with someone of, have another voice to bounce stuff off of would, yes, be good. I started editing my films because largely I'm the, I'm the person we can afford. And so, yeah.
So good. And then next question, 16 millimeter. Besides from the aesthetic value of it, how do you think it favors the performances and your work, kind of?
16.
Yeah.
Well, I think it especially in this film, well, when we were working on it, it was quite a lot of snow, and it did not look good on HD. It just looked too harsh, so I did a test in HD, and we just all wanted to shoot film, and so we went back to film. It just gives you some texture. I mean, this HD is just getting, it can just make everything look so harsh and cut out. We used it in Night Moves. It was the only time I ever used it, and I think Chris Blauvelt did a very nice job of, but we had, those were like overcast skies. That was in Oregon, and you could count on a lot of overcast skies, which helped. But there was a lot of bright winter skies, and I knew that I might have some harsh light, and that HD would make everything have a really much colder kind of texture. So, we went for the film, yeah.
For the film.
Yeah.
Sound effects. I mean, the train horn sound and placement and the echoing present. Is there any symbolic gesture on the sound design that you think?
There's I'm just sort of attempting to use the town of Livingston is surrounded by a train depot, and okay. So it's so trains are always in the air, present. And so I'm bringing them in and trying to kind of use sounds of traffic and trains and just the day-to-day kind of sounds of life in lieu of a score. And then with the rancher character, she's a little out of range, and so there's this radio static quality coming around her at times with a DJ friend that you would sort of get to know but isn't quite there for her to tune into. So yeah, that was that sound. And then just the general wind of the place. It's a very, very windy place, and the wind, every location would sound so sonically different because of the wind, and our sound recorders were so great at being able to give me a collection of those sounds that I could have in the editing room.
I noticed in your film the landscape is playing a major character in your films as well. Yeah. Are you conscious about that as well, where you want to be in a certain areas and stuff like that?
Yeah, so a lot of the ideas have come from ideas of wanting to check out certain landscapes. I mean, I scouted that desert when I was shooting Wendy and Lucy of Eastern Oregon and with John Raymond, and we thought it would be great to shoot something here. And then we did Meek's Cutoff there. And the Night Moves was shot on a farm of some friends of his and his wife's. And we, went and spent time at that farm and was like, yeah, this would be a beautiful place to shoot. And, it was so interesting around there. And then Miley's stories were set in Montana. And so that seemed like a natural place to scout and look around. And you go there and live there and get your daily routine down, and then you sort of start to see it all for the more specific, as opposed to the grand beauty of it, because it is very beautiful. And then when you get into the day-to-day routine of living somewhere, you sort of start to see it in a more kind of nuanced way. And yeah.
Great. Now, there's a great shot of James LeGros character driving backwards in that one scene.
Yeah.
And the idea that he wants to move back into his own timeline, conceptually, how was it intended, or it was just a lucky shot or something?
No, it wasn't so much a lucky shot. I mean, I planned for it to be shot like that. I wanted him to. It was a way of putting them both in the scene together and then bringing Michelle into the scene. But I don't know if I don't think I thought of it necessarily as having this idea of him moving back into, I don't think that occurred to me. But, it was, I liked the idea of them pulling away from their house and having this moment alone with each other. And, yeah.
So another question is more about your background. What made you become a filmmaker, or what filmmakers and films inspired you become to film?
Well, when I I think probably early on, the films of Fassbender and Rodier were the films that first kind of, when I first started really looking at movies. And I lived in Boston, and I lived near a theater that showed a lot of film noir, Anthony Mann films, and and maybe Melville. Also, yeah, those.
I thought Robert Bresson would be.
Oh yeah, hugely, yeah. But Bresson, I found a little later.
Oh,
but
okay.
But then then for sure, and Chantal Ackerman also, and Shirley Clark, and Barbara Loden's film, Wanda, which she only made one film, but I think she's a very important filmmaker. And who else? Yeah, well, I lived in Florida, so I never saw really movies growing up. And then I moved to Boston, and I took a film class about Fassbender. I didn't even know what it was, and it blew my mind, So, and I took a Indian cinema class, and both at the same time, and I was just like, oh my God, yeah. And so
I just saw Satyajit Ray's The Music Room for the first time a couple of days ago.
Beautiful. And
then the Elephant God, which is like a detective story.
I don't think I know that one.
I know, it's
Really?
Criterion. I just saw it
Oh,
on
really?
Hulu. Yeah, you should check it out.
Oh, wow. Oh, I will,
It's
for sure.
shot in the city of Varanasi, and it's
Wow.
a detective going, and there's an idol missing and stuff. Really nicely done.
I don't know if I know that one.
Yeah,
Wow.
I didn't know that either, because I
Wow.
know everybody knows the Apu trilogy and the Music Room and stuff.
But
It's
also there's the
17.
one. Do you know? It has the title "Forest" in it, and it's it looks like a Godard film, or I think it was he looking at Godard, or Godard was looking at. I mean, it feels like a French New Wave film. It's something with the forest. If it has the word forest, and if you look for the title, and the score is incredible. Yeah, really beautiful score.
I will check it out. I mean, I've seen some of his film, but not everything. But it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
so
you
nice
much.
meeting you. There you go. How's that? Say the title again.
It's called.